This is the Mike Corley program.
The great tendency to say, well, if Mr. So-and-so said it, it must be okay, because Mr. So-and-so is such a big guy, you know, he's such a well-known guy, he has such a big church, he's written so many books. Don't ever make that mistake. The outward person of the messenger does not validate his message. Rather, the nature of his message validates the messenger.
Wake the neighbor, get the word out. Come on, crank up the music, climb on the mountain and shout. This is life we've been given, made to be lived out. So la 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 la, live out loud.
Engaging today's culture with biblical truth. Mike Corley is on right now.
The gospel is being preached. Christ is being made known.
Well, this is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. Hello, everybody. Today's program kind of special, so we're going to go back and we're going to share with you. I've had the honor and the privilege of having done interviews and visits and even establishing some relationships with some wonderful people. Some, in fact, some of my heroes of the faith. First, with Dr. R.C. Sproul, Renewing Your Mind, Ligonier Ministries, Table Talk Magazine. He's the author of many, many books. He's almost considered like the contemporary father of Reformed faith and Reformed theology. And what a tremendous blessing R.C. Sproul has been to me over the years. I've had the opportunity to speak with him on just a couple of occasions, and especially at this stage in his life where he doesn't do a whole lot of interviews. So we were very honored not long ago to visit with Dr. R.C. Sproul. Today, I'm honored to have with me on the program today Dr. R.C. Sproul. He has served the church for some 35-plus years, a seminary professor, preacher, author. He's a founder and chairman of Ligonier Ministries. His popular radio and television broadcast, Renewing Your Mind, is heard around the world every day. Renewing Your Mind Radio is heard on our station weekdays at 9:30. He's a senior minister of preaching and teaching at St. Andrew's Church in Sanford, Florida, and he's author of more than 60 books. And Dr. R.C. Sproul is with us on the Mike Corley program today. Dr. Sproul, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to spend some time with you today.
Well, thanks, Mike. It's great to be with you. I was just standing by and listening to that little message by John MacArthur and then the greetings from Al Mohler. These are two of my best friends. And we work together a lot, and it's great to hear them on your show.
I've heard Dr. MacArthur make several jabs about RC this, RC that, so it's a pleasure to finally speak with you in person. Give our listeners who may not be familiar with Ligonier Ministries, Renewing Your Mind, and yourself and your ministry, give us a history of what Ligonier Ministries and R.C. Sproul is.
Well, Ligonier was founded 35 years ago in western Pennsylvania as a result of a request from churches and paraministries to provide a theological education for the laity to sort of plug the gap between Sunday school and the seminary. I, at the time, had been teaching in seminary, and I accepted that challenge to begin that study. I worked with Francis Schaeffer, and he helped formulate the concept of Ligonier Ministries in those days when we had a campus in the mountains. We were there 13 years and then moved our operation to Orlando 22 years ago. And what we've done over that time is provide educational materials for pastors and for the laity for in audio tape or audio cassettes and CDs and video and books and study guides and of course radio and television, all these different media, trying to ground Christians in the content of the Christian faith, help them to know what they believe and why they believe it.
How did Renewing Your Mind, the radio and television broadcast, come about?
Well, the radio program started, 12 or 13 years ago when I was urged by some people out of Chicago to give this content that we were doing through direct mail, put it on the air on the radio, and I said, well, I'm not sure radio is an adequate medium for education. And boy, was I wrong. So we tried it, we launched it, and we found that there was a real hunger out there for people wanting some serious content. And biblical and theological material, and we've been sailing ever since. And then this past year ago, at NRB, the powers that be at the National Religious Broadcasting group there got a whole channel on DirecTV to air television, and they wanted to change the face of Christian television. They wanted to get more serious content, and they came to us and asked if we would step up to the plate there and get our materials on there with them. And so we agreed to do that. And so we just actually started a year ago, January, I guess, or maybe it was just this past January.
Yes, it was this past January.
This past January or December, we started airing Renewing Your Mind on DirecTV.
And I was, until I recently moved, I was able to watch that on DirecTV and enjoyed it very much. Was very blessed by that.
And you don't have it now?
No, I don't.
Oh,
we're going to have to get it on our local cable channel.
What are you going to do about the NFL package if you do?
I don't know. We're normally Saints fans around here, so we're going to kind of just wait till the middle of the season, see how it turns out anyway. Everyone has their particular specific place in ministry, and I would assume after 40 years you've determined that already. Where do you see the Lord taking Ligonier Ministries, Renewing Your Mind, from here on?
Well, we're working now on a succession plan because they know I'm not going to live forever, at least on this planet, although I do plan to live forever. And we are in the process of putting together an academy of theological education, and it'll have a Bible school element to it, a seminary element to it. And we're doing a lot of work with pastors. I worked this past 3 years with John MacArthur out in California in his Shepherds Conference, and working with the Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals with the Together for the Gospel objective. And also you mentioned at the top there of just having met recently Ligon Duncan, and Ligon has a conference every year at Twin Lakes for ministers there in Mississippi, outside of Jackson. And I was there this past year, and I'll probably be back next year. And then we have our own pastors' conference here in Orlando in the fall. And so, one of our hot buttons is to continue trying to be encouraging and supportive to ministers.
Let's get a little more broad or more theological here. Describe for our listeners who may not understand. What are the distinctions of Reformed theology as compared to, say, Southern Baptist or Methodist?
Well, just recently at the Presbyterian Church in America's General Assembly, they had a special pre-conference seminar or conference on the Westminster Confession of Faith, which is the 17th century formulation of Reformed doctrine. And they asked me to address that group on the significance of the doctrine of God in the Westminster Confession. And when I gave that address, I mentioned that for the many years I taught seminary, one of the things I taught in seminary, Mike, was the doctrine of God, or what we call theology proper. Mm-hmm. And I said I would start my class with a paradoxical statement, even though I'm not given to paradoxes, but I said, on the one hand, there's nothing particularly unique about the Reformed faith's doctrine of God. We share with the Lutherans, the Methodists, Episcopalians, even the Roman Catholics, a common affirmation of the attributes of God, that He's self-existent, eternal, omnipotent, immutable, and so on. I said, there's nothing really unusual in the Reformed doctrine of God. I said, yet at the same time, if you were to ask me what I thought was the most distinctive characteristic of Reformed theology is distinguished from other theologies, it's our doctrine of God. And they look at me like, well, how can that be?
Thus the paradox.
The reason for that is that we start our confession with the doctrine of God, and then when we go to the next page, we don't forget what we said on the first page. The doctrine of God is what controls the whole scope, the sum and substance of Reformed theology. When we try to understand who human beings are, we understand our humanity in light of creation by God in terms of our being in His image. When we come to the doctrine of justification, it is God who justifies. It is God in His His justice that makes justification necessary. When we come to our understanding of the dual nature of Christ, His humanity and His deity, we don't forget what we've already understood about the doctrine of God, and particularly when we come to doctrines of salvation, when we look at how we are saved, the accent is on God's sovereignty, and that has preeminence over everything else.
Do you find that perhaps one of the biggest questions or topics that you discuss when you go to conferences and meetings is election, the sovereignty of God?
Yeah, I hear that all the time. I mean,
I bet.
That's a given with our ministry, and that's good. I mean, I'm glad for that, because when we deal with that doctrine of election, which is so difficult on the one hand and so controversial on the other hand, it forces us to really examine the biblical concept of grace, and it can become an extremely encouraging investigation and comforting investigation when we dig a little more deeply to discern really who God is and what He has wrought in giving us the gift of salvation.
We're visiting with Dr. R.C. Sproul, and recently, Dr. Sproul, in an annual meeting of the Southern Baptist Convention, there was a discussion, a debate, if you will. I don't think debate was probably too strong a word, between Albert Mohler and Paige Patterson on the subjects of Arminianism and Calvinism. There seems to be, as we've just mentioned, a greater interest, or at least it seems to me, on the two views among many people today. Do you think there's a resurgence, perhaps an interest between Arminianism, Calvinism, election, or is that just my perception?
Oh, I hope so, and I think there is a resurgence. We've seen it over the last 35 years here in this country. We saw it with the broad impact that Francis Schaeffer had on the church. We saw it with the impact J.I. Packer has had on the evangelical community. And we've also seen a resurgence of interest in the Puritans, who were totally committed to the Reformed faith. And, of course, I'm convinced that Reformed theology is just a nickname for biblical theology.
I agree.
I know the debate there at the Southern Baptist Convention, I wasn't there, but I guess my name was taken in vain because I've heard a lot about it. I was talking to Mark Dever last week, and Mark was asking me to pick up the phone and call Paige Patterson, because evidently Paige quoted me as saying that the fall took place because in God's doctrine, according to Calvinistic doctrine of election, that I said God needed to have the fall. And, Al Mohler, who was taking the other side, of course, was taken back by that quotation. He had never heard me say that, didn't know where it was from, and apparently Paige didn't give any reference, but I told Al afterwards, I said, Al, I'd cut my tongue out before I'd make a statement like that,
Dr. R.C. Sproul is our guest on the Mike Corley program. Ligonier.org. Ligonier is spelled Ligonier.org is his website. Dr. Sproul, one of the things that I have a friend who would say, you had R.C. Sproul on the program and you didn't ask him this question. Define the difference between a Calvinist and a hyper-Calvinist. I was teaching some time ago, and someone said, all of a sudden said, aha, I knew it, you're a Calvinist. What's the difference between a Calvinist and a hyper-Calvinist?
Well, the answer to that, Mike, depends on the historical context in which those labels are used or have been used. Historically, there was a distinction between Calvinism and hyper-Calvinism within the Reformed community, and the distinction had to do with the question of the order of God's decrees. Now, I don't want to get into it here on the radio, but the difference really was between what we call supralapsarianism and infralapsarianism. And in supralapsarianism, it has God decreeing the corruption of people and the reprobate. And that was not the majority report within historic Calvinism. Historic Calvinism took a milder view of those decrees. But that distinction has been almost completely lost today. Now, when people talk about hyper-Calvinism, that label usually comes out of the dispensational community. People like my friend Norm Geisler likes to use that term, hyper-Calvinist, for me. as does, we mentioned already that discussion or debate at the Southern Baptist Convention between Page and Al on it, and that question came up again about hyper-Calvinism. And people say to me, what is a hyper-Calvinist? I say, well, to be honest with you, a hyper-Calvinist is what dispensationalists call Orthodox Calvinists. A lot of dispensationalists call themselves four-point Calvinism. That is, they demur on the one point of what was called limited atonement. And they argue that historic Calvinists who hold all 5 points are really hyper. They're extra Calvinists. But that doctrine, that divides so many people today simply has to do with what was God's eternal design or plan in sending Christ to the cross. Did he send Jesus to die to make salvation possible for people, or was God's plan of salvation such that from all eternity he was determined to save his people, and he sent Christ to die for his people to make sure that their sins were atoned for? I mean, I don't see how you can think about that for 5 minutes without coming to the conclusion that obviously God didn't roll dice when he sent Jesus to this earth, and he knew very well who would believe, and he appointed some to believe, and he gave these ones to be gifts to his son, and that's the one that Jesus ultimately died for. If I say it this way, if I say that Christ only died for the elect, then people get all upset. Mm-hmm. If I say Christ only died to make an atonement for believers, then people say, oh, okay. We're saying the same thing.
Yeah. We've worked, had some workings with Dr. Moeller and Dr. John MacArthur, and one of the things that comes out in discussions with those two gentlemen and others is that what seems to be the incredible lack of discernment among believers today, many just falling for anything that comes down the pike. What do you attribute to be the cause of that? Where are we lacking
I think it's
when we just fall for anything like that?
The problem of biblical illiteracy. We live in a culture where the secular mindset has embraced relativism, and relativism has pervaded the entire culture, including the church. Mm. And people believe, well, there's no such thing as objective truth or ultimate truth, and so why search the Scriptures? Religion becomes a thing of relationships and personal devotion, without any real attempt to understand the content that God has been pleased to reveal to us in the Bible. And unless we are really grounded in the truth that God has revealed to us in Scripture, then we are fair game for every wind that comes blowing down the street.
Some say that this is a fulfillment of Bible prophecy. It's part of the falling away that the Scriptures speak about. Do you agree with that?
Yes, to some degree, I would say so. Although this is something that happens in every generation, I think it's particularly acute in our own day.
Let's talk a minute, just a couple of minutes left here, Dr. Sproul. What would you like for listeners in our area and everywhere, for that matter, to come away from, to gather, to get from renewing your mind when they listen to you each day on the radio?
I want them to be deepened in their understanding of the content of the Scriptures. That's what I want. I mean, I'm a teacher. That's my vocation. I was ordained to the teaching ministry. I've been, as I said, a seminary professor for almost 40 years, and that's my calling, to help Christians get grounded in the truth of God.
There's going to be an event that we want to talk about in the fall. We mentioned Albert Moeller earlier. He's had some accomplishments in life. Yeah. Lexington, Kentucky, the Cross of Christ. Tell us about that meeting. What is it going to be about?
Well, this will be our regional conference there, and it's in Lexington. I don't know how many people will be there, 12, 13, 14, 1,500 people. It's just a weekend retreat type of thing, and we're going to focus our attention on what really was going on in the atonement. What was the cross all about? Christians tend to think that they know all about the cross. When you talk about where we don't really do much except go scratch the surface, it's on the doctrine of the cross, which is so central and so important to our understanding of the faith. And I'm really delighted to have Al Moeller working with me in this seminar. He and I will be delivering the messages at that seminar. It's going to be held at the the Tates Creek Presbyterian Church in Lexington.
Right. And it's going to be a great event. We're going to try to get up there ourselves. We're really, really looking forward to it. Dr. Sproul, if someone wanted to find out more about Ligonier, about renewing your mind, they can go online, I assume, and get more information there, of course.
Yes, they can get that information online, or they can call our 800 number. The online address is www.ligonier, which is ligonier.org. Or our toll-free number is 800-435-4343. That's not too hard.
No, it's very easy.
4343.
And Renewing Your Mind is heard each weekday here on 1420 AM The Word at 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time.
And let me make a public apology to the folks of your region there in and around Vicksburg. May I do that?
Sure, go right ahead.
A long time ago, my great-grandfather, I'm embarrassed to tell you, was in the Union Navy and was involved in the blockade of Vicksburg, which was a pivotal thing in the war between the states, or what I like to call the War of Northern Aggression.
That's what we call it.
So I have to say mea culpa, but, the sins of the fathers, are visited down to the sons, and I apologize to all my friends in the South for that.
Well, I would bet that everyone here in Vicksburg and our area listening would say, we accept your apology.
Thank you.
Dr. R.C. Sproul has been our guest. Dr. Sproul, again, it's been an absolute honor and a privilege for me to have the last 25-plus minutes or so to spend a little time with you. It's something I will cherish forever.
Well, I appreciate it, Mike, and I'm really encouraged by what you're doing.
What a tremendous man of God Dr. R.C. Sproul is. What a blessing he has been and continues to be in my life, in my ministry. What an honor it was to have a conversation with R.C. Sproul.